It is coming up to 10:27 in the morning. You're with Britain's newsroom on GB News with me, Emily Carver, and Tom Harwood.
And the government has been given the go-ahead to take a legal battle over its Rwanda deportation policy to the Supreme Court. But the Immigration Minister has warned that there will be no further compromises on government plans to tackle this small boat crisis.
So where does this leave us?
Well, the barrister Stephen Barrett can join us now. He writes for The Spectator as well. And Stephen, a lot of people will be thinking, what on earth is this parliamentary ping-pong we keep hearing about, where legislation goes to and from the Democratic House and the undemocratic House before it can actually become law? Where are we with that?
Well, that is... we have seen the process whereby the House of Lords has become increasingly political. That's fair to say. So constitutionally, we used to have what you think of as neutral peers, neutral members of the House of Lords, and they were always called crossbenchers. And what the crossbench now has morphed much more into something like a political party. So it's quite clear that they have very strong political opinions and they don't like the government's efforts to control migration. Now, that's their private and personal political opinion, and they are affecting it through their role in the Lords. Quite how far that can go constitutionally is a very big question. The fact that they call it ping pong, I think, should reassure your viewers, because it does mean that ultimately they know they're going to lose. If they called it a battle or a war, then it would be serious. Admitting it's just ping pong is sort of an admission that really they are just messing around.
Stephen, yes, it is the House of Commons and the government who are ultimately in control. But I just want to ask about the House of Lords and their processes, because they are there to scrutinise legislation proposed by the government. That is their job. But is there a line to be drawn between scrutinising legislation and suggesting amendments that could improve the legislation and the sort of wrecking amendments that we see from the likes of Shami Chakrabarti, for example, on this particular bill? But we've seen it with others. Where's that line? Where do you think that line should be?
Well, there is such a line, and you're very right to highlight it. Their job is to review and scrutinise. It's actually very important that they read everything. I'm not entirely clear that, and maybe I should be kinder to the House of Lords, I'm not entirely clear that the House of Commons is reading everything. And really, our system requires everybody to read everything and pay, proper attention to what they are doing. There seems to me to have been an over-reliance on officials and not necessarily the attention to detail that one expects. But yes, properly functioning, the House of Lords is a reviewing chamber. And it would provide wisdom and guidance to the House of Commons. So in the idea, but putting it very practically, the House of Commons does the first draft. It tries its absolute best to get it right. And then the House of Lords comes in and says, well, I think actually here you've made a small, could we make a tweak here and could we make a tweak there? You are quite right to highlight that instead, they've been moving more towards wrecking amendments and moving more towards deliberately frustrating government policy, which is a very curious thing for the unelected House to start doing.
Let's talk a little bit about the Supreme Court now, because the government wants to take its separate Rwanda policy to the Supreme Court now. There was a judgment at the Court of Appeal, which was a split judgment, but did strike down the government. The government thinks it can win on appeal to the Supreme Court. Can it?
Yes, absolutely. And it's right that you highlight it was a split decision. So the Court of Appeal has 3 judges and the Rwanda plan lost 2-1. The one is a very respectable and highly gifted lawyer, so his opinion shouldn't be completely dismissed just because he was outvoted. That's not to criticise the other 2 either. But you sometimes in public life, in particular, we've reached a very binary position where everything is absolutely extreme, and so the fact that his opinion is outvoted, it doesn't mean that it should be dismissed. The two who went against the government are basing it on the idea that Rwanda's own internal proceedings are not sophisticated enough or not developed enough, particularly the level of training that their civil servants have been given. That seems to me to be the absolute minutiae of detail. And the Court of Appeal really, the two who went against the government, really lent very, very heavily on UN agencies, and I'm not entirely clear that will survive. Certainly, it would be. I think what we're witnessing is the end, really, of the public lawyer as a big force in our society, because as parliamentary sovereignty returns after Brexit, really, it starts being what I was taught. So when I was at university, public law, I wasn't taught public law. It was called administrative law, and we called it admin. And it is a question of, is the government complying with all of the details? Is it crossing the T's and dotting the I's?
But rather than doing the sort of advocacy stuff. Stephen, thank you so much for talking us through all of that. We're going to have to leave it there and get to the news headlines.
We could chat all day, couldn't we,
really,
Stephen?
really could. We'll have you back very, very soon. Stephen Barrett there, barrister and indeed writer.
Let us know what you